By training, I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine, and I'm licensed as a physician in the state of Washington in America. The idea is to help someone to recover and regain their health naturally, holistically, whilst honoring the body's ability to be able to self-regulate. One of the things I do focus on a lot is nutrition and food, which also incorporates, in a way, diet and lifestyle, herbs, maybe supplements also. And then I really emphasize the mind-body connection and how your mental, emotional state can influence your physical state of health and vice versa.
Hey, welcome back again, or welcome for the first time to the Oliver Schirach Show. I'm your host, Oliver Schirach. And today I present you an interview with Dr. Poorna Menon, a Naturopathic Physician Health Consultant. In this podcast, we were talking about health, about medicine, about the meaning of do no harm, the do no harm approach in healing for physicians, how to find out what is the best approach to heal. The holistic healing, we looked at Ayurvedic principles, Natrupatic Medicine, Craniosacral. We also touch upon somatic experiences. We talk about different routines, like morning routines and evening routine, especially morning routine. We give some advice how that could look like for you, a shorter and a longer version. And we also talk a bit about different stuff, of course, herbs, mushrooms, spices, whatever you could use to supplement your health, your diet. So without any further ado, I want to welcome Poorna Menon to this talk. I hope you enjoy. Hello, dear friends from my podcast. I'm Oliver, your podcast host. And today I'm sitting here virtually on the other side with Poorna Menon. And we connected through a common friend, Teffer. I interviewed 3 years ago, I think. And I got some WhatsApp message on a talk you guys had or exchange you had. And he connected us. And now here we are sitting. And you are a specialist on health through food, nutrition, if I got that right. And we had a half-hour talk last week on your background. So welcome to the show. And what are you doing currently so that people know what to expect?
Thank you, Oliver. It's a pleasure to be here with you talking today. Currently, what I'm doing is I'm based in Singapore, where I work as a health consultant and a mental health practitioner. By training, I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine, and I'm licensed as a physician in the state of Washington in America. So depending on where my client or my patient is based, I basically help them with their health through the lens of naturopathic medicine, which the idea is to help someone to recover and regain their health naturally, holistically, whilst honoring the body's ability to be able to self-regulate. So how every naturopathic doctor practices is different. As you mentioned, one of the things I do focus on a lot is nutrition and food, which also incorporates, in a way, diet and lifestyle, herbs, maybe supplements also. And then I really emphasize the mind-body connection and how your mental, emotional state can influence your physical state of health and vice versa. So I spend quite a few of my consultations are focused on mental health and the mind-body connection also.
Thanks for the short introduction. Well, I hope the people get something out of this to know what to expect. So we're going to go deeper into how to use all these nutritional and body-mind connection, mind-body connection, how it's influencing depression, because that's what the people which follow me for a longer time, they know I had 2 podcasts, From Depression to Expression and the Oliver Schirach Show. And in the end, both go more into finding yourself, finding out how to be more in the flow, be more authentic with yourself and, express yourself, be creative. That was my goal in the beginning, to help people to find out how to use different modalities or mindsets or tools to be more creative and innovative. And in the end, it's going all back to being oneself, being in the flow, as we call it, as we say it in the spiritual world, being in the flow. So if you would have to describe yourself, or if you would like to describe yourself in 3 adjectives, what would those be and why would you choose those?
Oh, interesting question. I don't think anyone has asked me something like that before. 3 adjectives. I guess the first one that comes to mind is evolving, since I constantly feel like I am evolving, and that's the direction that I'm hoping my life goes towards, evolving to be more myself, as you would say. The other one is healing, because of so much of my work is centered around health and healthcare. And I feel evolution can happen even if you're not actively healing, but it's easier when your mental, emotional, physical health is better. So I'm also very conscious of my own healing journey and helping others to recover or heal. And the last one, I don't know if it's fully representative of what I am, but let me say it's a goal that I'm trying to be more of. It's just free. Because I really think that so many of the shackles that we have or we feel are created also by our mind. And I'm reminding myself a lot in the last month, especially, that I'm basically free. And I want to try and embody that even more.
I guess that feeling of freedom is also one thing which is a driver for my never ending thirst of knowledge and curiosity and growth. As far as when I was 16, I had this feeling of this cage around me, which sometimes was bending. So it was not metal or iron. So it was like rubber, but it was still hard to get out. I
Totally.
can resonate with that feeling
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. Totally.
But it also goes hand in hand with evolve. Kind of you evolve, so you become more
Yeah.
yourself. How would you describe being free? When I look at the other words, evolving and healing, and your goal is to be free. So what would it mean for you to be free? When would you know that you are there?
I think I'll know that I'm there when I'm not thinking about it anymore. Because as long as you're thinking about it, that means you're not free.
Okay, so you think it's a mental construct then?
I think it's actually ultimately a mental construct because even if there are so many individuals in our world who've been imprisoned or captured or trapped in some way, and still they're one of the most resilient, inspiring individuals you could ever come across. And my reflection on that is that it's their state of mind that allows them to remember that whatever's happening externally, that's just like an external dynamic. You define who you are, how you relate to your world, which is really the truest sense of freedom, I think.
Does any person come to mind that you have heard which was imprisoned?
Yeah, a couple. Nelson Mandela is a famous one, of course. There's this other Colombian lady called Ingrid Betancourt who was captured by the FARC rebels, I think, FARC, and kept in the Colombian jungle for many years. Her stories from that time are also quite interesting.
I have never heard of her. And I've heard also of Viktor Frankl, which
Mm,
was in the
yes,
Nazi camp. And he
of course.
wrote his book, which
Yeah.
helped so many people.
Yes.
And actually, the first person when I asked the question was Nelson Mandela in my head. And so
Mm,
that's the first one you mentioned.
yeah.
But the other one, I did not hear from. That's interesting.
She's a politician, actually, but what I found interesting about her was that period of time that she spent in the jungle for years and managed to come out of that.
Not giving up. So, what was her story to get out of it? Do you have any essence? What helped her to get out of this imprisonment in the jungle to becoming a politician now, apparently?
Yeah. So her father was a politician. So she had been a politician before she got captured, also. I think that was the reason for her kidnap. But years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I listened to a interview of hers on the BBC where I think she spoke about how everyone's name was taken away and they were just given an identification number. And she said how dehumanizing that can feel because your identity has basically been taken away. But how she had to remind herself, in spite of that, who she was and hold on to that, regardless of however it is people are treating you, you still know who you are and you hold on to that mentally and don't let that go.
We can go down a rabbit hole here with how we identify ourselves, right? Our ego or whatever it is that we are holding on. This is my name. This is my job. this is my religion, this is my whatever status you have, and being given just a number is like really removing all of that. Probably everyone even get the same type of clothes and probably the same type of haircut. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
yeah. And then thinking of a spiritual path, thinking of the, the different teachings I've heard and listened or talks I had with people, it reminds me of we are more than our mind and our body. I don't know who really always says that, but I know Sadhguru is telling that many times. There's also a meditation like 3-4 years ago when I went a bit deeper. I saw that you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not the body. Or you say it yourself, I'm not my mind, I'm not my body. To disconnect. And thinking of that, probably should link to that interview with Sri Lankan woman I interviewed. She had the ego death, and she said it was a 10-year journey for her from disconnecting from these different labels, now that you mentioned that. And
Mhm.
when she knew what ego death was, when she really could let go of the construct, I'm my mind, I'm my body. And she could get rid of that. She opened up to a whole new reality for herself. Yeah, that's just a side note.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're
So
right.
how is it in your world, in your path, in your evolving journey at the moment? Where do you stand when we talk about labeling?
I think that's the journey. Well, so I'm raised Hindu and I've practiced Hinduism my whole life. And I think I'm fortunate because of that, because Hindu philosophy is very ancient and I think very wise and profound. And they are probably being the oldest religion in the world. They have a lot of this wisdom of how you are not your mind and how you are not your body. You are the indestructible, eternal self. So I've grown up with that wisdom, and my mom teaches and my grandmother teaches certain parts of Hindu philosophy. So I'm exposed to it a lot. So that helps me kind of know what to anchor into, and then catch myself more easily when I'm falling off that train of thought. But I think we're so socially conditioned by where we live, who we mix with, even our families, our friends, how society dictates and puts labels onto us, that it's a constant mental trap it's a constant mental, we're always identifying to a label. And this year, I remember when I had COVID and I was isolating in my room for about more than a week. And it was the first time in a really long time where I didn't have to be anything. I could just be nothing. And it was such a period of bliss, to be honest, because there was nothing I had to do. And life forced it upon me to get rid of every label I ever had and just do nothing and be nothing. And I came out of that feeling immense peace. So I think that kind of like a reset. COVID did something to my body and COVID did something to my mind. But I came out knowing what it can be like if you are free of labels completely.
Yeah, COVID did a lot to different people's minds. So that can be like a 10-hour podcast only about all the different aspects, but definitely many people profited from being isolated, from slowing down to some degree.
Yeah,
And you didn't have to be sick for that.
exactly. But it helped because we're so entrapped by labels when you're not isolated and have to do something every single day. But when you're actually sick and isolating, there's nothing you have to do, and that reminds you that you can be free of labels.
Yeah, I shouldn't say. I also had COVID like 1.5 years ago, February 22, I think it was. It was very mild for me. I was labeled Corona sick, so I thought like, yes, I have the stamp in my passport, so I could travel if I
Ah,
want to.
great.
uh, but for me, it was also, yeah, like you said, it was like okay, just sit down, watch TV. I don't remember what I watched, some kind of series, probably some Star Wars or something like that. Don't remember, and I didn't feel bad about it because I'm sick. I'm just on the couch, could just watch. And when I'm too tired, I just turned off and I closed my eyes and was sleeping again. And that's how it has
Exactly.
been for me.
Yeah.
But let's go on from here. I really like this. This is filler. So my next question I have normally to warm up, and I really love it because I get always some nuggets to go deeper. And I'm sure I'm coming back to what we talked here, but depending on what the interview goes. If you would imagine yourself being a new color in a coloring box, whatever color it is, it can be a imaginative color, it can be also a color that exists. What color would you be, and why would you be that color? First thing that comes to mind is always the best.
Okay, in that case, it'll have to be my favorite color, which is deep purple or royal purple. And there's no profound reason to this except that it's my favorite color. It looks very nice when I wear it.
When you wear it, so it's like
Yeah,
your favorite's not because you're also wearing it on your body.
it just so happened that when I wear it, it also looks good on me. And it was my favorite color anyway.
Okay, but it's really interesting because the last 3 interviews I had was always around purple and violet.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a royal color, as some people say. And if you go into chakras, it's going upper
That's,
chakras.
that's true.
It's connection to the divine or downloads.
Yeah,
Whatever you
yeah.
want to call it.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. So you've given a profound spin to my selection.
We can go into, how do you call it? Personal evaluation, what kind of colors you like, right? So there's like this mental psychology backgrounds. You can go deeper if you want. I'm not
Right.
doing that. So if you have any secret or fun fact about you, not that many people know, and you are willing to share it, what would that be?
It's not a secret. It's a bit of a fun side given my job now, which is that for 7 years, I was working in banking and investment banking. So I did a complete 180 on my career and said goodbye to that corporate life and then proceeded into medicine.
Okay, but then let's take it there. When we had our talk last week, you shared a bit about your path. So let's go onto this deeper end. I think with the background we have so far, that's going to be really nice to go deeper. So how comes you ended up in a bank, and how comes that you left? What are the reasons? What are the, if you can see them, identify them?
Yeah, I think I can maybe identify it better now that I have perspective. So, how come I ended up in a bank is because back then I felt that I wanted to be financially successful fast. And one of my family members, my uncle, is actually in banking and continues to be in banking. And he's very good at his job and he really enjoys his job. So he was I think, maybe unconscious guide and mentor to me. So I decided whether I love it or not, I'll just make myself good at this thing and I'll pursue it. So that's how I ended up there. And how I ended up leaving is because it was a very toxic environment. And I've always had a chronic digestive health condition. And when I was there, given I think the circumstances and my complete disregard for my physical health, that physical health bottomed out and I had a very bad crisis, which I'm still recovering from. But it forced me to really stop and take stock of how I was defining success and happiness because I was miserable, although I had achieved all my career goals. So it was a good wake up call and I left. And I guess I should add, I left because I had some sort of a plan. I was scared of leaving and having no plan. So I left knowing that I was going to enter into medicine. I just didn't know specifically what type of medicine. It was either going to be Ayurveda or naturopathic medicine. And that's what I took the next few months to figure out. And then from there, I built on it.
So when your health deteriorated, you shared with me last week that you were just crying yourself to sleep. Is that so? How long was that phase, and do you remember how it started and why you were like that down? And how did it express in the sickness in your health in the body actually as well?
So the most obvious symptom was I wasn't able to digest anything. Usually when your stomach gives out, you go on a very light and simple diet and it usually recovers. that stopped working for me. And that it was like that for about maybe more than 6 months, I think. And that's when I knew something was very wrong because nothing was helping. And the reason I was crying was actually not because of my physical health. It was because I was stressed from the job and very upset with the circumstances that I was in and the kind of pressure that I felt I was being put under.
So you deep inside yourself knew there's something is wrong. You're not doing what you really love. Because how is it for you when waking you really, really hard? So little sleep, hard long days, and you still feel great. You're still smiling. You're still good around the people, and you can eat the things. In what kind of situations would it be possible for you? What kind of work or activities?
I don't think at this current stage of my life, I don't think any situation because sleep is so important. It's such an important pillar in my own health right now. If I don't get a certain amount of sleep, I don't feel good. And I prioritize sleep because of that. And also, given my health and so on, I know that if I push myself physically and do too many hours, I again won't feel good. So I don't do that. It's all about balance for me now. Knowing how much I can do to create the best outcome.
I have a book about Ayurveda home, which I'm not reading because I got it and then I said I'm pushing my podcast forward again, so that takes more time than I expected. Well, what I remember in the little I read, according to Ayurveda, it's very important to have structure,
Yes.
consistency, rituals, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
So
100%.
how was your life before that knowledge? Were you having a rhythm or were you just like doing in and out, a long night, a short night, eating
Yeah.
here, eating there?
Yeah. I think my life I'm raised in the traditional Indian household. So there's some semblance of a routine and ritual, but it was never from the perspective of this is so important for your health. And so, yeah, when I was working in banking, I was in my 20s. And a 20-year-old body is usually quite resilient. Can take a lot of knocks before it finally listens. So I was doing whatever. I always prioritized my job. If the job needed me to stay till midnight, I was staying till midnight. If the job they allowed me to leave at 6 p.m., I'd leave at 6 p.m. And then on weekends, I was sleeping in. So I was catching up on sleep by sleeping extra on the weekends. Basically, there was no real structure. But now I talk about routine and rhythm a lot because Ayurveda, I think, is absolutely spot on with this, which is that humans like to think we are not part of nature, but we absolutely are. And nature has such a beautiful rhythm and harmony. The sun rises and falls in a certain pattern, and depending on the season, if we can live in sync and in harmony with nature's rhythm, then our health comes into alignment also. And so for me, I live in a tropical country. The hours don't change very much. And I'm lucky then because I can really try and be consistent with winding down at a certain time every day, waking up. And then to link all of that to mental health, what it does to your nervous system is that your nervous system has an anchor. As humans, we're faced with making all these micro decisions every day, from waking up in the morning, what do I wear? How do I spend the next half an hour to 1 hour? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to talk to? And there's a cascade of these decisions. And your nervous system is constantly trying to juggle its decision making amongst them. So if you can create a structure and a system that your nervous system can expect, and that and that structure and system has rituals that are grounding and promoting your health, then it takes away a lot of this decision fatigue. And your body can literally just settle into that, and your nervous system can feel regulation from that, whilst the rest of your life is going on. So that's why ritual and routine is so important. I emphasize this with all my clients, even the ones that are depressed, where it's hard for them to snap out of certain patterns and start something. I say, just start small. Just start small. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be something that your body can start anchoring into and which brings regulation to you.
Yeah. Yeah. it made a lot of sense because I can see it in my own life. As a kid, teenager, there was a certain routine until probably being 16 or 17. And then the Friday nights and Saturday nights came, and suddenly the Monday nights, because we had salsa and hip hop. I think hip hop was Thursdays and salsa was Monday or Tuesdays. Then you're home at 11, right? And sleep at 12. And Fridays, Saturdays was longer. And it didn't really affect that much, but I can see it now. And for in my own personal life, I know about these things, but it's somehow I'm struggling having this routine. Even though I'm alone, I'm with a dog, so nothing is hindering me of having these routines. It's a mental thing.
Yeah.
So then what comes first, the egg or the chicken? Can you change your thought or your habits first, and then even though you mentally, like you want to do this and you want to do that. That's for me. Yesterday evening, I said, I'm going to just make a shorts for YouTube from one of the interviews I had, even though it took me like 8-9 hours the whole week to summarize all the things. But I also want to calm down by watching a movie and just relax. And then it was 10 o'clock. I'm like, I should go to bed, but I want to watch this movie. So I started watching a movie. I probably was in bed at 1 o'clock instead of 11:30.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to calm down. And it was like this mental thing. And there's so many situations where similar things happen. Right? And I know one thing is, of course, to say, set a certain time. I have from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock for this. I'm not checking off a to-do list, but I'm checking off an activity.
Yeah.
If you feel activity or not, doesn't matter because you did that activity, working out, cleaning the house, writing down a summary, whatever, fixing a car, whatever it is in that time, you do it. And then afterwards you do the other thing. That's one of my things. I heard, but I'm not applying. So how would you, or how do you in your coaching help people to come back to a routine? I mean, you say start small, it makes sense. But with what are you starting?
Yeah, well, this is a wonderful question. So start small is very important because usually if there are too many things, clients can feel overwhelmed or individuals can feel overwhelmed, not just my clients, of course. And with certain people, I think it's important to emphasize it doesn't have to be perfect. You can take a million imperfect steps, and that's totally okay. So how I started with them is that I actually teach them skills that they can use and incorporate into their routine. So in your case, you talked about I want to watch a movie to feel relaxed. I teach them skills that are not necessarily watching a movie that can help them to feel relaxed. So they have this option, like maybe 6 to 8 options by the end of working together with me, which are ways to regulate their nervous system that they enjoy, that will ground them, give them a little bit of respite, put their nervous system into a rest and relax mode. And then they can continue on with their day. And because of it's nice because of my training as a naturopathic doctor, it's not just these mind-body skills I'm teaching, but I'm talking to them about what kind of nutrition they can introduce. So when you start your day, how are you breaking your fast from the previous night? Are you having a cup of black coffee on an empty stomach? Or instead of doing it like that, why not some herbal tea? What herbs would be good for your constitution? How are you having that? When are you having that? And then I'm talking about movement because circulation is so important. Circulation helps you to bring all the things that you need to all the tissues in your body. If you're not moving your body, that doesn't happen as effectively. So once you break your fast, how are you moving your body? What thoughts are you putting into your mind at the beginning of the day? Because how you begin and end your day is the sandwich for that day. And then whatever happens in the middle of what happens the bulk of your day, you are at least beginning and ending your day in a certain way that's going to give you this groundedness. And so that's another thing that I focus and spend a lot of time on with my clients. How do you begin your day? How do you end your day? Here are all the skills and the tools you have to do that. What kind of nutrition are you putting into your body? When are you putting it in? How are you moving your body?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Exactly what you say. It's must be 8 years now that I want to have an evening routine. I was married with small kids. They're now 9 and 12. Like 8 years ago. So they were much smaller. So the things are changing with small kids, and it's very important for kids to have routine.
Yes.
And I can just see how I know so well how important the routines are. And yet when I have the kids, I have them only every 2 weeks for 2 days.
Mm.
It's very hard for me when I have them. So I want to spend the time, and then all the routine is just going
You're
the
right.
little routine. But I know the power of a morning routine, power of an evening routine. Uh, I'm still struggling with. So if someone is really struggling, even though she or he knows
Mm.
that it's, let's say, to winding down, many people say 1 or 2 hours before you go to sleeping, you should not be in front of a screen. So no computer, TV, telephone,
Yeah.
tablet, whatever,
Yeah.
which is definitely one I'm not listening to at all
Mm.
with my kids. Another one is perhaps go for a walk outside to ground yourself,
Mm.
meditate, read a book, journal, whatever it is. And then in the morning, as you say, it's the movement and what you put in your body.
Yeah.
It's the thoughts. It's like the thoughts in the morning, thoughts in the evening, the movement in the morning, the movement in the evening, nutrition in the morning and the evening.
Yeah.
So, so how, if someone has these skill sets you give them,
Mm.
uh, still struggles, what would you tell them? Or how would you help them?
It is an individual approach, but let me try and answer it generically. If they're really struggling, and there would be specific reasons why they're struggling, probably I'd really trim it back. I would, through like my practitioner's eyes, identify the one thing that I think they need the most. So maybe we've talked about 5 things and they're struggling to do all 5. So at that point, I would use my clinical thought process and see where they're at and figure out the one thing that I think is really going to move the needle and say, forget these other 4, forget everything. Just between the time you see me now and the time we meet again, just focus on doing this one thing and think of it as a gift to yourself. Think of it as sacred time. Just do this one thing in the most imperfect, easy way that you can do it, and we'll take it from there. And when you do it, so I teach something also called somatic experiencing, which is a mind body technique. It helps you to notice how your body feels when you are going through certain states, emotional states, physical states, and so on. But it helps you to thereby connect with how your body feels. So I would remind them that when you do this one thing, notice how your body feels. Because maybe it's feeling good, but you're too busy not paying attention to how good you're feeling. But if you allow yourself to notice how good you feel when you do just this one thing, then it's going to motivate you to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's the positive spiral effect. It's also these things, listen to your intuition when you have this inner joy or the good feeling, as you say it, or the heart, the warmth around the heart. And this is a sign from your body, from your soul, from whatever you believe in, that you should do more of this. And when you feel tight and small and uncomfortable, it's a sign of doing less or not doing it at all. To avoid it, if you go back to your career as a banking woman, you felt tight. So a long sign from your body that something's wrong, or how was the feeling?
That's a great point you're making. I think I felt what you were saying initially. I have a different perspective on this now, though. It's something that one of my Ayurveda mentors told me. He said, when I met him right after I quit banking, so I was very sort of traumatized, deep in my trauma. And he said, you could have continued with your banking job and been totally fine. And it took me years to understand what he said. But what he means, and I don't know if I will do justice in trying to explain this, but what he means is that the world can spin around you and there can be absolute chaos around you. But if you know who you are, you will be able to ground into that and be completely at peace, regardless of what job you're doing, who you're with, where you are, etc. So to go back to your point of when your body feels this way, it's a sign that you should be doing X. And when your body feels this way, it's a sign you shouldn't be doing Y. My perspective is different now because it's not necessarily a sign that you should be doing X and you shouldn't be doing Y. It's data. It's useful data though, because it's data that's telling you that your body is feeling safe in this condition and not safe in this other condition. And that could be because the condition is really genuinely safe or not safe. But sometimes it's not genuinely unsafe. It's just your nervous system reacting to something that's going on. And that is, I think, an internal process for you to understand why your nervous system is reacting this way and to try and bring it as much safety as possible. Sometimes, you might even be with toxic people, or you might be in a robbery and a gun shootout. Those are genuinely unsafe situations. Your nervous system is activating because you need to get out of there. But if I was in banking, really speaking, nothing was unsafe. My nervous system was firing for a lot of reasons. It was possible if I was as evolved in understanding myself as maybe today, maybe I could have still done the job and been at peace because of this technique to know that it's my nervous system. Nothing is really wrong here. I'm projecting and expecting and creating pressure on myself and taking it too seriously and all these things. If I let all of that go, if I let all those labels go, I'd actually be at peace. I could still do this job.
Yeah. So it's still a message from your body that you're subconsciously or consciously are distressed about the situation, about
Yes,
the
that's right.
environment.
That's right.
Oh,
And usually, so the way that I approach that whole journey is at that point, your body is distressed. If you try and use your mind to try and rationalize this, it's not going to be helpful because your body is in threat. That's why I teach skills so that you can bring safety back to your body just through breathing, through meditation, through muscle relaxation, through somatic experiencing, through all these different techniques. You can just bring safety back to your body. Then, when your body is calm, you can try and rationalize what happened.
yeah. You mentioned breath work here. I was also thinking while we are talking, we went really fast down into giving tips and tricks and somehow flying over what happened, how what you actually learned after the banking, all this knowledge about Ayurveda and nutrition and somatic and all these things we're talking about. Perhaps we have to, or could be nice for the listeners to take a step back again. And that's my mistake. I'm guiding here and with my questions, but all this knowledge you have, where is it coming from and what is it based on? And how does it resonate with you or
Ooh, where I guess formally where it's coming from, some of it is coming from Ayurvedic philosophy. I'm not trained in Ayurveda, but I've spent time with a few Ayurvedic doctors who have been very influential in my life. The bulk of my training is in naturopathic medicine, so a lot of my knowledge comes from that school of thought. And then when I studied naturopathic medicine, I specialized in mind-body medicine, and I had another incredible mentor in the mind-body medicine field. So through him, I learned a lot of the mind-body modalities, which one is breath work, somatic experiencing, and so on.
yeah. So now you're throwing some words out, which some of the listeners might say, yeah, but what does that mean? Ayurveda, as far as I know, it's like 5 year study or even longer to actually understand because there's so many aspects. It's the whole life science. It's the whole way of living, as you mentioned, with herbs, with oils, with different foods, with routines, sleep. Then we have the body type, the doshas, which I don't know if you want to go in there today. I'm in Ayurveda at the moment, so I probably will have an interview with my Ayurveda teacher where we go more into that because that's what he teaches. But we can also look at it today if it's making sense. Then naturopathic medicine and the mind body. So the naturopathic medicine, what does it do and what is it specialized in? I know if I go to my doctor, my house doctor, whatever it's called in English, he will check me for the flu, blood and whatever not. What is it that you learned in that part, naturopathic medicine? Do you
Yeah,
give?
that's a really good question because not many people might know what is this at all. So in certain parts of North America is where it's formally called and appropriately called naturopathic medicine. There is still something called naturopathy that some people utilize. It's a slightly different training, though some of the principles might be similar. And the precursor to naturopathy and naturopathic medicine is something called nature cure, which is from Europe. So naturopathic medicine has a few principles and a few branches of therapy. And everyone who becomes a naturopathic doctor would have gone through a 4-year accredited doctorate program in an accredited medical school in some part of North America. And in those 4 years, it's very similar to certain aspects of medical training, because at the end of that 4 year, in many states, we can be licensed to be a primary care physician. So a bit similar to a general practitioner, where someone comes in and you would do clinical intake and assessment and diagnose them and then prescribe certain therapies. But to go back to what it is, some of the principles of naturopathic medicine are things like first do no harm. So if you have a case, what is the best way to bring resolution to the health of this person by doing as little harm as possible? And so if a pharmaceutical medicine does a lot more harm than something else would in their specific case, then you would do the something else instead of the pharmaceutical medicine. So we call that kind of a therapeutic order. We're looking at what is going to give maximum benefit with the least amount of harm. Then we know that they are a holistic whole person with systems that are interconnected and speak to each other and influence one another as well. So in conventional medicine, whereas you might have specialists who focus on just the digestive system or hormones or the brain, when I'm looking at a case and it seems to be a digestive case, I'm also thinking about maybe hormones and mental health and other things, thyroid health, maybe that could be influencing and affecting this person's digestive health. So it's holistic and integrative in that perspective. It's also preventative, because a lot of medical care is reactive right now. Only when someone is sick, you try and help them out of it. But naturopathic medicine is also focused on the preventative aspect of it, meaning being proactive in your health. How can you live right now in the best possible way so that you never develop a chronic illness? Acute illnesses like the flu and cough and cold might come and go if you're exposed to viruses and bacteria. But how can you prevent chronic illness from developing is really important. And we focus a lot on that. And I guess one of the important distinguishing factors is that your body has wisdom. There's a self-regulating force inside that is always trying to bring you back into balance and trying to self-heal in a way you could think. Some examples are, if you cut your hand, your body knows how to heal itself. You don't have to tell your body to send white blood cells to defend against an infection. You don't have to tell your body to create scar tissue so that the wound heals. That happens without your mind being involved. It just happens in your body. When you fall sick, for example, and we have fevers and coughs and colds, and we all think, oh, these symptoms are so terrible and I feel horrible because of that. It's actually, again, your body's wisdom. You have a fever because if you raise the temperature, the virus will probably die. You're coughing because there's something stuck in your phlegm, and if you cough, it'll come out. And you're sneezing because of the same thing. And yet we think of all of these symptoms as like the enemy, and we have to shut this down. But it's your body's wisdom to bring you back into health. And that's happening all the time because the body's always surveying your environment and knowing when you're out of balance and trying to bring you back. So in naturopathic medicine, we work with this wisdom so that we're not suppressing it. We are working in concert with supporting that ability to self-regulate.
So you touched on, for me personally, with my little knowledge, it sounds like you also mentioned it, holistic. It's like a holistic view. I don't remember if I mentioned to you when I went, when was it? 7, 8 years ago, I had problems with my thyroid. And then can I do something with my lifestyle? Can I eat different? Do I eat wrong foods for me or something? You take this medicine and then we check you. And if it doesn't get better in 3 years, we are looking at your whatever, at your
Wow.
lifestyle.
Wow.
And I was like, what is going on? And already there I knew, because I listened a lot to Tim Ferriss and a lot of these different people which came to him talking about different approaches, meditation or fasting or no grain food and whatever. It's all different for people what works. So I cut my bread and sugar, and after 6 weeks, all the symptoms were gone.
Huh.
But
Amazing.
yeah,
Good
and
on you.
he's like,
Like,
oh,
yeah, that's wonderful, Oliver, that the medical system told you something and you decided this doesn't really make sense. Let me see.
yeah, for me. But I know my mom has also thyroid problems. She has, I think, Hashimoto or whatever, like up and down, and she's regulating. I'm like, Mom, have you ever tried to look at your food? Oh, no, I'm full. And there's many more things which I'm not going into here.
Mm.
But I can see, so it's like, okay, did I have it? Because, of course, it's my mom's, it's my body's genetics. But I also know from Bruce Lipton, it's your environment which is activating and deactivating certain genes. So it's not the genetic makeup which makes you sick. It's very, very little amount of people which are sick because of the genetic. The rest is just like turning on, turning off, which sounds a bit like what you're telling. It's a holistic approach. So if something is wrong in your stomach, you look at the holistical picture. Are you, when I think of the holistical picture, are you also looking at the skeleton structure? I heard the doctor also, that must also have been around the same time with my thyroid problems, where he said he looks at the whole body. So he has a chiropractor or physiotherapist with him, looking at the person, backbones, the spine, shoulder, if there's any blockages in the body physically, which is hindering the body of communicating, or like the fluids, the nervous system is somehow blocked. And that's why some organs or some other part of the body will
Mm.
be in trouble. Are you also using this kind of approach?
So, one of the branches that we're taught in America as part of naturopathic medicine is something called physical medicine, where we are taught to assess the physique of a person also. And we have learned some of the what's called high velocity, low amplitude adjustments that you would be most familiar with in terms of what chiropractors do. So they adjust certain parts of the body. Naturopathic doctors are just in a similar. We've also learned some of the HVL adjustments in school. I can't practice that in Singapore because I don't have the certification. But I have also learned something called craniosacral therapy, which is looking at the movement of certain structures of the nervous system, as well as the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, which is that fluid that kind of bathes the whole central nervous system, your brain and the spinal cord. And the school of thought of craniosacral says that fluid and the structures in the central nervous system have a certain natural movement. And so if you know how to listen and assess for imbalances in that system, you can help bring balance back as well. So depending on the case, I do sometimes use craniosacral, and it can be very helpful. And depending on the case again, I may at least do a visual assessment of alignment. Not necessarily spinal alignment alone, but things like posture and imbalances, asymmetry, things like that. And then accordingly advise. But I will say physical medicine in and of itself is not something I specialize in. So when I see such clients in Singapore, I usually will recommend them to a chiropractor.
Okay. Yeah. But you're aware of it, and it's part of your consciousness when you work with the clients.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Definitely.
yeah, but it's just also just to put the point here for the listeners that we are so much more than we think. So our general partitioner, as you call it, Hausarzt in German, the home doctor. And you also, for me, I picked up some of the things you said, which I'm not sure if the listeners realized, but it's in preventive medicine. And that's what I heard from the traditional Chinese medicine or the Asian philosophy. I'm sure the Native Americans and the indigenous people of Africa or Australia probably have a similar approach. But a lot of the knowledge has been lost because there's no more libraries and books. I've also talked to my Ayurvedic teacher, and he also said, yeah, the English people also tried to destroy this religion and the culture, but they were not able, because India has been very good in protecting that knowledge. So we still have the writings of Ayurveda and the old teachings, which are 10, 20, some say even 40,000 years old. because they still do writings. And the Indian people are very good in spreading by word. I had the Aztec Indian, which I interviewed in July. And I don't think in the podcast he talked about it, but when he shared on the seminar, we had a 2-day seminar, so much more time to share than in a 1 to 2 hour podcast. He also shared that when the Europeans came, that the wisdom, the scientists, the teachers, the elderly, when they were sharing the knowledge, the Europeans came and cut the tongue, so they couldn't share it anymore. They were destroying 200,000 books in 1 weekend, and we called them primitive. So we do not really know the knowledge they have. So it might be very similar to what you're sharing with all these different teachings, that a medicine man or a doctor or whatever you want to call him, the task was to keep the people healthy. And when you were sick, you didn't pay, because that person didn't give you a good advice for having a healthy and a strong lifestyle. So then he had to heal you again. So apparently you paid them to keep you healthy, preventative. And when you were sick, it was on them. And where we are in the Western medicine, we pay because we are sick. So they don't get paid because they keep us healthy, preventative. That's what you're doing, right? You're learning.
It's what I would like to do. I guess in my case, I'm doing both, which is that I'm advising my clients both on preventative medicine, and when they are sick, they come and see me and I advise them on the same. But to go back to your point of what happened in Indigenous and traditional wisdom structures around the world, yeah, I think one of the worst things that could have ever happened to humanity is colonialism, where there was the systematic destruction of traditional wisdom with no regard for any of the consequences. My mother's actually reading a book by this Indian gentleman called The India That Is Bharat, I think. And he focuses it on understanding what it is that colonialism has done to even India, where you're right, a lot of the knowledge is still preserved. And yet there is a certain seeping in of that mindset that I think hinders us. But one thing that she shared with me is that all of these traditional cultures, doesn't matter which part of the world it came from, we all understood we were part of nature. And all of their ancient wisdom, tradition, worked in harmony with nature because of that. But somehow white culture didn't see themselves as being part of nature. They wanted to dominate nature. And that's when this rift and this divide has been created, and they saw indigenous forms of wisdom as being primitive and theirs as being the superior one. And unfortunately, whoever they plundered and colonized, we're all victims of that unfortunate legacy.
Yeah. But you work on the part of bringing it back. And you said also you got certified in the US, and that's like, originally it was the Redskins, but now there's of course a lot of Europeans living there. I don't know. Probably the whites is anyway less, but it's a Western country, which is going back to this holistical approach of medicine.
In very small pockets. Still not. We are still the minority.
It's a start. It's a start, right? So it's a start, even though it's small pockets.
Yeah.
Which is very nice to see. And I'm living in Denmark. I've been told that acupuncture is only like 5 to 10 years that it's accepted. I'm like, wow, I'm Swiss, so I think in Switzerland we used acupuncture a little bit before. And here in Denmark, they're very skeptical. Many people, not everyone.
Interesting.
But many people are very skeptical at this so-called pseudoscience medicine, right? So how does it work with hypnosis, acupuncture, homeopathy? But of course, more and more people are waking up, and that's how it is. It's like small steps. I'm also wondering of the natural wisdom we had in Europe, right? Where before we were, I mean, some group must have destroyed the connection to nature in Europe first, made it normal that we're superior, or the belief that we're superior before it could spread around the whole world. because we also had our witches and other people, herbs. While I mentioned herbs and oils, going back to your education and how you help people, this is one of the things I haven't really learned yet. I had essential oils with my ex-wife from doTERRA, which I really loved, and I went deep, but then I flew out again, unfortunately. And I know Ayurveda is also using oils, herbs to heal. And I saw the connection when I was reading about essential oils, because they come from a different plant, from the herb, from flowers, from fruits, and the effect they have. So I know, for example, oregano. Don't take essential oil oregano like undiluted; it's burning it. But because of what I read there, I know I have an oregano plant at home, so I use the fresh oregano in my salad to help my what is it?
Antimicrobial action.
Yeah, exactly. Anti-fungus, whatever, biotics and so on, which is on a natural path. And because of that, but there's so much more. So are you also using oils and spices and all these things together, or you're not so knowledgeable on oils?
Whoa, I like to think I have some knowledge. Definitely the Ayurvedic approach, I think, is immensely. I think their understanding of herbs and how those herbs can be combined and used for specific conditions is incredibly deep. So I unfortunately don't have that training. I wish I did. But I learned botanical medicine more through the lens of Western herbology with some Asian herbs. And thereby, yes, I definitely use a lot of herbs in my instruction and guidance to clients and for myself. And then, depending on how you prepare oils, there are certain base oils from seeds and nuts and so on that have certain qualities, but you can infuse herbs into that, which is how Ayurveda also does it. But whereas their formulation might have 25 things and they understand everything and know how it's working. If I formulate a herbal oil, it might have 5 things. And I'm doing it in a different way with kind of the knowledge that I have.
Yeah, you brought up some other 1 week webinar I was listening about the different natural remedies we have. And there was a lot of traditional Chinese medicine practitioners talking about, as you said, having an oil and putting the different things in it to help the body to cleanse, to rejuvenate, to whatever, strengthen, all these different aspects you can use. And there's actually a lot of mushrooms, which apparently help.
Yes.
Lion's mane is one, ashwagandha, and ashwagandha is not a mushroom. But
Yeah.
all these different.
Reishi, shiitake.
Yes. And it's so fascinating. It's really fascinating. The whole aspect of different mushrooms, herbs, barks, and so on, and how to apply them. And my Ayurvedic teacher, Govind, told me not to take coconut oil to apply when I have the essential oils to massage, but to take sesame oil, which is better for my dosha. If we want to go down, right? The fire, the water, earth, and so on, elements to help. So when you have the oils, when you talk different infusions or the different blends you do, are those oils that to be topically applied, or is it oils you drink?
Pending. So one of the Ayurvedic things I recommend to clients is the oil massage on your body. And similarly, I'm not doing a deep constitutional assessment to figure out their dosha, but more simplistic questions like, do you run hot, do you run cold, and so on. And then I might say, use coconut oil or use sesame oil. And then also Ayurveda recommends something called oil pulling, which is very good for the oral microbiome. Yeah, and your gum health and so on. And so it's actually topical because you're not swallowing that oil, you're just swishing it around in your mouth. But because I specifically might want that to have an antimicrobial action, I might recommend that we use coconut oil because coconut oil is antimicrobial. And then I may or may not recommend that you infuse certain antimicrobial herbs and spices into it. So, for example, at home, I infuse cloves because cloves are antimicrobial and if you chew on them, they can help if you're having tooth pain and things like that. They have what's called an analgesic effect, so they help with pain. So, in the way that I'm currently recommending it, I think the way that I recommend oils is more for topical use. Internally, not as much. Not as much. There's a certain diet that I might recommend for some clients who have irritable bowel syndrome, where you have to cut out onion and garlic because it can cause a lot of bloating and discomfort. And in those cases, I recommend that they infuse onion and garlic into oil instead and cook with that oil and eat it. So they're getting the flavor, but what they're also getting are the antimicrobial effects of onion and garlic.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm not really consuming garlic and oil at the moment. Just when I see it, I'm like, oh. And they've been adding a lot, right? It's just like somehow it escaped my cooking. I still have onions and garlic, but I'm just not using it for
Mhm.
whatever reason. But when we go back, I was reading in this book I have exactly this oil pulling or whatever you call it. And I'm thinking of my gums because I read it and now that you mention it. So what is that actually? You're having an oil and you put it in the mouth and then you swallow swoosh it around the teeth and then you spit it out, or how does it?
Yes, exactly.
And when do you do it?
And
When do
when
you do it as well? Is it morning or evening or whatever?
Yeah. So it's one of the steps in the Ayurvedic daily routine that you start. The daily routine starts in the morning. And the order in which they recommend it is after you clean your teeth. So in today's world, it would be brushing your teeth. After that, and after scraping your tongue, you do oil pulling. And how you would do it is you take about a tablespoon of whatever oil you're using and then swish it around in your mouth for about 10 minutes. So in and out, the way I do it is in and out through my any crevices in my teeth, around my gums, and specifically making sure that you're not swallowing it. Because what's happening is that I don't think there's enough research into the mechanism of action, but it has an antibacterial kind of effect in your mouth. So it's helping to bring balance to your oral microbiome. And if there's an infection or if there's too much bacteria or something like that, it's helping to bring that back into balance. So it's important you don't swallow that oil and you spit it out at the end because you don't want to be ingesting whatever it's taking out.
You don't want to have the toxins in your stomach.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to take it from into your stomach. You want to take it out.
Yeah, it's like you what I understood is overnight on your tongue and the sweat in the mouth, it's like the body is pushing the toxins out there. So if you pull them even more, so you have all the toxins the body wants to get rid of, so don't put it back in
Yeah,
the
that's
stomach.
right. Yeah, that's definitely one angle. The other angle is that there are a lot of species of bacteria that live in your mouth. And gum disease is actually one of the most common things that anyone has. The rate is something like more than 90% of humans in the world have gum disease. And if you think about how our vessels are connected, the vessels in the mouth can lead to vessels in the heart. So they say that it can have a cardiovascular impact. So you want to make sure that your oral microbiome, meaning the environment of bacteria in your mouth, are balanced and not creating infection. So the oil pulling also helps with that.
Yeah. Oh, which then brings me to the question: what is you mentioned a few points for the morning routine. What is kind of like a minimal morning routine according to your knowledge, which is based on, as we heard, Ayurveda and naturopathic and other things? What is like this morning routine? 10 minutes, spit, swallowing the oil in the mouth. It's like wow. So what would someone do waking up? And is there a certain time people should get up? Is it like also what I heard from the Western medicine? There's a sleep doctor which calls for biological rhythms or cardian cycles or whatever you call it, where people should go early to bed around 10ish or later. That's natural because body type. And then they also get up different. Or do you feel like everyone has getting up before 6 o'clock because after 6 o'clock is kappa time, and if you get up later, then you will be heavy? So, like, when should we get up? Or is it different for the different body types? And what are the typical routines you should do in the morning? like minimal, not like the extended version for the ones which want to spend 1 hour every morning.
Or let's see, how do I answer this? I think regardless of body type, if you can bring yourself into a state where you're waking up at around 6 o'clock in the morning every day, it's probably going to be the most supportive for your health. And if you are tuned into how your body reacts, you might notice that the later you wake up after 6 a.m., the more heavy your body, if you're tuned into that. But I understand that constitutions are different. So a lot of my clients will tell me I'm more of a night owl. I'm not an early bird. I myself, because of my health background, I struggle a lot with regulating my sleep-wake cycle. So I say this with a lot of empathy to whoever is listening. I struggle with this also. But you need to be conscious of your own health, what makes you feel good, and try and adjust it such that you are trying to come as close to 6 o'clock in the morning as possible. But you want to wake up feeling refreshed. So if you're not waking up feeling refreshed because you're not sleeping enough hours, then you need to adjust that for yourself. Now, second part of your question, once you wake up, what's the minimum that you can do? I almost feel if I was an Ayurvedic doctor, which I'm not, I would say, but there are no shortcuts to what do you mean by minimum? But since you're kind of asking me, what is the minimum that I can do? It would be wake up in the morning. Ideally, once you wake up, the natural kind of yogic urge should be to want to have a bowel movement. So you wake up in the morning. In Ayurveda, they say the first thought should be, how has my food digested from the previous day? Because you wake up in the morning with the feeling of needing to go to the bathroom. So then you go to the bathroom, you have a bowel movement, and then you clean your teeth, wash your eyes, I think, scrape your tongue, do the oil pulling, do a oil massage on your body, put some drops of oil into your nose and into your ears as well. Have your shower or your bath, and then you do yoga and pranayama. And then you have breakfast in half an hour after that. And then you start your day. And then you might, I don't know, do maybe some spiritual activity or daily routine rituals. And then you start your day. So I think that's if I'm recalling it correctly, that's the full extent of what they suggest. If you want the best effect for your life, you should actually try and do all of that in some way, maybe even if it's a shortened version. So if it's a shortened version, instead of maybe putting oil all over your body and massaging every part, just do the major joints. So your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, your knees and your hips, and massage that. Have your shower. After your shower is when we say that we should do yoga. So I recommend doing Surya Namaskar and Sun Salute every day if you can. But I work with people who are not well. So sometimes they can't do 6 Surya Namaskars, which is the minimum recommended amount. If that's the case, I say just do 2. Just do 2, one on the right side, one on the left side. Do it with the breathing because those are anti-gravity and pro-gravity movements. And it really helps with kickstarting circulation. And you want to do that after your bath, not before, because once you've done yoga, you have created a certain energetic charge in your body. Now, if you go and eat and drink something immediately after yoga, and if you take a shower immediately after yoga, you're disrupting that charge. And you don't want that to happen because you've created this energy now. Keep that energy. Let your life force flow through you for at least half an hour after yoga. And then you can have something to eat or drink. So the things that I would focus on are do your morning routine in the bathroom. If you have time to do 2 minutes of an oil massage, do that because it helps with circulation. It helps with moisturizing your skin. It helps with self-love. It's a moment for you to connect back with your body and your own self. Then once you finish that, do a few minutes of movement. My strong recommendation is learn Surya Namaskar, Sun Salute, and do at least 2 rounds of that if you have a health condition, 6 rounds of that if you don't have a health condition. And then don't eat or drink anything for half an hour after, and then have a as balanced and nutritious breakfast as possible.
Wow. I just see like, how will I do that? I get up around 6 because I have to be at work at 7 and I'm really tired in the morning. But what my Ayurveda teacher told us, what I remember is like he said, have a lukewarm, big glass of water. So as the first thing when you wake up, drink a big cup of water because we dehydrate during the night. And then of course also sun salutation and how is it called? I don't remember, where you hold both earlobes and you go up and down to ground yourself. That's what he comments as well. So it's very similar to what you say.
Interesting. Yeah.
The tongue scraping is like with a metal brush or something, right?
Yeah, with a metal tongue scraper. You can use a copper tongue scraper also because that helps with getting a little bit of copper into your body.
Copper in the body. Okay, I have not known that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a important micro metal to have.
Okay, so probably have to look at the tongue because I remember reading you shouldn't have a plastic one, so definitely metal or, as you say, copper.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, let's see. I was just wondering really about 10 minutes of being there with the oil in the mouth and moving back and forth.
Yeah, it's not traditional, and I don't think Ayurvedic practitioners will be happy with me. But if you are rushing for time, what I sometimes do if I'm rushing for time is I start that and then I get into my shower. So I start that and then I put oil on my body and do my body massage and then get into the shower and then come out. And by the time I've changed, it's been about 10 minutes and then I spit it out.
Okay. Yes. Not that you disturb the energies like that. The other thing is also when you mention doing this activity with the sun salutation, like you have this energy charge in your body from the
Yes.
pranayama.
Yes.
And my dog is just licking it. So she's like super active. And she's licking my knee
Ah.
and my hands. And I don't know what she wants. She was sleeping until now. Sorry about
That's okay.
that. I lost my track now.
The
Where
energy
was I?
charge you were saying.
Yes, Qigong, because I did also Lee Lee Hayden, or what's his name? Yeah, he's like an American, which is teaching Qigong in America a lot. And before all this, it's reminding me a lot of that, doing Qigong and then doing the sun salutation. One is more Chinese and the other more Indian. But in the end, it's the same, right? It's like activating the prana in your body, the chi, whatever you want to call it, life force.
Yeah.
And apparently, I haven't seen it yet, but people talk about it that some scientist has been able to create a machine or an optical machine that can see the light force, so kind of like light being emitted from our cells. So apparently you can also see it nowadays. But just going back to the Qigong, yeah, there's different energies. So yeah, you take it in and you move, like you don't want to disturb it. So you want to have a healthy, strong life.
Yeah.
And when I think of that half hour, 45 minutes, it will probably take me to do that. Then it also means I would need to go earlier to bed and sleep fast, as Schwarzenegger says. He says, sleep fast. It basically means go to bed and fall asleep and then go fast in a deep sleep and a rejuvenating sleep.
Yes.
How do I promote that? Is there also a long routine you know of for doing that?
In the evening.
Yeah, for the evening. So before I go to bed.
Yeah. Do you have issues falling asleep at the moment or are you okay?
Oh, I have for a long time, but I have been depressed and anxious and stressed. And then people say it's ADHD, but I'm like, what is first? ADHD is a result of being anxious and stressed, traumatized, or is the trauma, depression, anxiety coming because of ADHD?
Yeah.
So,
So if you have insomnia, there could be many reasons for why someone has insomnia. Depending on the individual, I take different approaches. Sometimes insomnia is worse when you have anxiety because of, ruminating thoughts and an overactive mind not being able to still that before you get into bed. An evening routine is essential though, I think, whether you are an insomniac or you're not. Because that's basically inviting into your world, telling your nervous system that it's time now to just let go of everything that happened in your day. Slowly wind down, slowly settle into your body, and now put yourself to sleep. So, however you create and craft that evening routine, this is the message that you want to give to your body. Which is why screens can be disruptive, mainly because of the light that they're emitting, and secondarily, because of maybe whatever content you're consuming. So, what I tell some clients is buy blue light blocking glasses or set your device to change its color. Sometimes they have this sunset setting where the glare changes so that you're not getting as much blue light. And I tell them, don't do anything stimulating. I don't want you to be watching the news, watching a movie. anything that's going to activate your mind and suggest to your body that now is not the time for me to be falling asleep. If you want to read something relaxing and soothing or watch some animal videos, maybe all of that is okay. But also, you don't want to be getting into kind of deep and stimulating conversations at night either, because that is again going to wake your nervous system up and it's signaling to your body now is not the time for me to sleep. So anything that's taking you out of that signal is going to be disruptive to your evening routine. And then other things, I teach all these self regulation, mind body modalities. So I tell them you can do some breathing, you can do some meditation. I really encourage something called progressive muscle relaxation because that is consciously relaxing and dropping every muscle group so that there's no tension in your body, such that when you're lying in bed, you're not holding your body in a funny posture. You're just letting the bed carry you completely. So you're like completely into being held. And that's actually a technique, I believe, that they use for Navy SEALs in America also, which is relax every part of your musculature so that you can fall asleep fast, like Schwarzenegger.
So how
And
does that work?
yeah, you can look it up actually. It's called progressive muscle relaxation. To summarize how it works is that you are consciously knowing how to relax each and every part of your body's muscle. And there's a certain way to train yourself to do that, which is by contracting so that you notice how tension feels and then relaxing completely so that you know what relaxation feels like. And then going muscle group by muscle, such that when you are lying in bed or wanting to fall asleep, you can now recognize where you might be subtly tensing up. And ever since I've started learning this and teaching it to clients, you might notice when you're lying in bed, you're not actually fully relaxed. You're in some posture where you're holding some muscle in some funny way, but you want to kind of try and completely relax that as well. Why? Why? Because if we go back to the mind body connection, if your muscle is contracted, the message to your mind is that I'm stressed because there's no reason for your body to be contracting right now. But if you're doing that, your brain is getting a signal that there's some reason for me to be maybe a bit stressed right now. So you want to take that signaling away. And then other things like I think Ayurveda talks about how you can give yourself a little foot massage with some nice oil. Other things that I talk about are sleep hygiene. So from the naturopathic perspective, dimming the lights in your room, dimming the lights after sunset in your house, making sure your bedroom is quiet and dark. So if you are not able to do that, then wearing an eye mask and putting in earbuds or earplugs, making sure it's cool enough, because if it's not cool enough, you won't fall asleep. So your torso should be feeling cool enough. And if it's still too noisy, trying to maybe put in a white noise machine. And if after all of this, you are still not falling asleep, then I'll usually recommend herbs and maybe melatonin, depending on the client, because that means that the circadian rhythm is very disrupted and the body's finding it hard to reestablish that routine. In which case, herbs can help because there are certain classes of herbs that work with your nervous system to soothe it and help it to feel sleepy. Melatonin works well for some people, doesn't work well for other people, but it can be a useful agent in once again reestablishing that routine. So I sometimes recommend those things for a very short period of time to reestablish the routine. And usually after that short period of being reestablished, you don't need the herbs as much anymore because your cycle has been set now. And then you just follow with the evening routine as we talked about it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you're in your own cycle, and then the herbs or the melatonin will breaking that cycle until it's balanced out,
Yeah.
as I understand.
Yeah, exactly. And depending on the individual, they need that sometimes, I find, because just doing the other evening routine things is not enough.
That's where I was. I got melatonin. In Denmark, you have to go to the doctor. You cannot just buy it,
I see.
which is a bit sad. But
Mm.
melatonin for me helped sometimes if I was missing the 10 minutes I had, because if I went to bed too early, I wasn't tired enough.
Yeah.
And if I didn't go in 10, 15 minutes to bed, I was too awake and then my head was spinning and I had all these different thoughts. And it's interesting because where I live now, the last 3 days, there was a mental expo in the city, and I listened to one who talks, and he said he was like hallucinating things about his wife or girlfriend. And I'm like, well, perhaps I was there, right? Perhaps I was fantasizing about things which were not true, and there was no proof. But my mind started catching on some thought, and I couldn't sleep. And then taking 2 melatonin pills, I don't remember the size they were, helped me to actually fall asleep. So it was like punching this
Yeah, yeah,
hole, so
yeah,
knocking me out.
yeah.
I haven't used melatonin in a long time, but if someone wants to go more natural, quotes, what kind of herbs would you recommend? I have lavender, for example, next door, and come up. Do you have any other herbs people could use? It could also be a herb in the bedroom. Like if someone wants to have the smell, it's
Um,
hard to have a lavender in your bedroom, but
yeah,
but any other herbs that works fine. If one or the other, yeah,
yeah.
if lavender doesn't work.
Well, there are many. These are sort of guidelines and not medical advice, but if you wanted,
Yeah.
if any of these herbs appeal to any of the listeners, they should like follow up with the herbalist or follow up with me, and I can be very specific on how to use it. But some of the other herbs are nutmeg, valerian, passion flower, California poppy, hop, catnip. Those are some kava sometimes. Those are some of the ones that come to mind. Depending on the person, I will recommend a combination of these or a standalone herb in a certain dose.
And when we talk about herbs, are you then infusing it as a tea and drinking that like half an hour before you go to sleep to help?
So with the chamomile, probably actually chamomile is the only one I'm recommending as a tea. For the other ones, they are usually as tinctures. With the exception of nutmeg. Nutmeg, you might have it in your kitchen, so then I'll recommend it in a way that you'd ingest it.
So you make a nutmeg cake. I need a nutmeg.
Probably not. But yeah, that's one that if you have in your kitchen, then you don't have to make tea out of it. You can just have it in another way. But the rest, tinctures are a good way. And you can usually buy tinctures online. So that's when the herb has been infused in alcohol, and then there would be a certain amount that you can take in just a little.
So tincture means still you put it in the mouth and then absorb it that way, or?
Yeah. So I usually recommend in a little bit of water and then drink that.
Okay. Yeah, so you put it in.
Yeah.
It's okay. So if I get you right for the evening routine, to try to summarize with my words as I understand here. As we already talked, the screen time, you can have blue blocking lights, lenses or glasses, or I've heard this night vision on the screen doesn't really work. I've heard from scientists because it still has the blue light emanating from the screens.
I see.
I don't know if there might be new screens which use a different technology. Who knows? But then the other thing is no movies or books or news or discussions which are elevating your mood. Something that is agitating you. Like if you're much in politics, don't read about what the opposition did or is planning because you might get really agitated.
Yeah.
But that's also what Johnson said. I remember that with the Tim Ferriss show, he said he's not taking the phone after 8 o'clock from anyone he knows he might get into an argument or a discussion,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
setting him up. Then some self-regulation. That could be reading, could be meditation, muscle relaxing. You said progressive muscle relaxation. And I'll see if I find a YouTube video we can link to this interviews. People can directly go there. The foot massage, you said. I guess a general massage. What I did with my kids was with essential oils. I massaged them. So we had like 45 different oils and 60 different oils because we were like getting really like, we want to try this and that. And some oils really had some effect on our body, like Siberian fir. When I smelled that, my whole body was shivering and really. So we tested with the kids what kind of oils they would like. And then I was just massaging them all the body before sleeping. That was kind
Sounds
of my routine for
wonderful.
some time.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And what I also did, something probably similar to this progressive muscle relaxation. I just told my daughter to feel in the body, like how each toe is relaxing, the foot is relaxing. It's just went all the way up on that toe to like all this energy is gathered in the heart. And then when all the energy was gathered in the heart, it will be flushed out through the feet and going into the earth. So she should imagine how this light goes into the earth, and then she will get new, fresh energy from Mother Earth, Gaia, Pachamama, and from the universe through the head. That's how I let her visualize it. And I realized I haven't done that for a very long time, a year or two. Because I
Oh,
moved to a different city. I don't see them that much. Before I could still go.
yeah.
During the week, if something happened, if my ex-wife did something, I could put the kids to bed, even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
at her place. So that's something I did.
Yeah, this is great. You could restart this when you see them every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I tried last weekend. We oiled. We got some massage. They, for whatever reason, finally said, "Can I have a massage?"
Oh,
I normally try to get them to massage them.
yeah, yeah.
Dimming lights, you said as well. And I think we're using all these LED lights, and there's some scientists who said it's actually activating us. These LED lights, we should have the normal old light bulbs, but in the winter, could also candlelight
Ah, yeah,
or
totally.
flame. The flame has some kind of a hypnotic
Yeah,
effect, so you could actually meditate looking at the light, just like let's let the flame hypnotize. I guess some soothing music could be something
yeah,
locked in as well.
yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, the quiet and dark room. Here in Denmark, at some time, I have arguments because they sleep with open window, and we have light only 3 hours of darkness in the.
Yeah, yeah. So blackout curtains or sleeping with an eye mask that can help.
Yeah, that's what I did. I bought blackout, and I actually made some wood framing so the curtain is going sliding through, so it's really dark.
Perfect.
But so this is good. Yeah, I could add from the Qigong master. I found this Lee Holden, or what's his name. He has like the morning and evening Qigong routine, to kind of calm down energies. That's why I asked you, perhaps Ayurveda might have also the sun salutation might be something you could do in the evening, just in a very slow, calm.
I wouldn't recommend the sun salutation in the evening because you should do that when the sun is rising. There's something called a moon salutation, though. I recently discovered this. I hadn't heard about it before, but apparently it exists and there are videos on YouTube. I was looking at some of them. So if you wanted to do some kind of settling down movement, that could be something to do.
Yeah. So Qigong or moon salutation. I don't know if I've heard that before. I need to
Yeah.
ask my Wolverine if you could learn that in our Ayurvedic classes,
Yeah.
Ayurveda yoga,
Yeah.
the moon salutation. Because now the sun salutation I've done 100,000 times, I think.
Yeah.
But not the moon salutation. Super. Is there anything I forgot to ask you? Now we looked at the morning and the evening routine. Is there anything I forgot to ask you? You would like to share in what you're doing, which is very important for people to know.
I think we've covered a lot of good things. Maybe I'll end with the emphasis on preventative medicine, meaning you have all the resources to start creating and crafting a life that will help you to not develop chronic illness. And if that seems overwhelming and like it's too much, then go back to just starting with adding one new thing and making it easy and accessible. It's worth it to feel good in your body. It really is. When you're not burdened by your physical and mental emotional health, it's much more easy to feel free and be free. So give yourself that opportunity.
Yeah, it's like yours. I just went fast through my notes and I put like a note, advice to ground yourself. Is how do you see that? If you're grounded, you're probably also more free. You're less reactive.
True.
Is, is there any method you really like specifically for grounding yourself?
There's no one method. I think it might be because maybe I've learned a lot of methods now and I use many of them. There's no one method. But what I will say is that the most important precursor to using a method is to have gentle self awareness that is non judgmental. Because unless you are aware that you're not grounded, you can't help yourself. But if you're aware that you're not grounded and you're judging yourself, that's also not helpful. So it's this adopting of a methodology where you can develop self awareness and yet do it in the most loving and compassionate way for yourself, such that you then have the option to do something that is grounding.
Awesome. That's a good advice.
Yeah.
Self-love, non-judgmental,
Yeah. Self-worth.
self-awareness. Be your best friend. Would you talk like that to your best friend or your spouse, your kids, your parents, the way you talk to yourself about certain things?
Exactly. Exactly. I used to sometimes ask myself, what's wrong with you? And then I realized, until I started doing this work, that why would I ever ask myself what's wrong with me? And I've stopped saying that for years now.
Yeah, I'm aware of it, but still, it's still there. These auto negative thoughts. And whenever I have an interview or a really nice discussion with some strangers or people I meet, I can feel like, no, you don't have to talk like that. Then when I'm too long alone, it slips in again. It's
Yeah.
a habit to change. So
Sorry, this is reminding me, Oliver, of one thing I should say, which is what I tell all my clients. It's the practice. We have to practice because nothing happens automatically overnight. Suddenly it all changes. It's just this decision that we are going to make all this knowledge that we have into a practice and continue practicing it for the rest of our life. And that's when your life will start changing. There's no magic pill. There's no, some people might have this cathartic moment where everything changes for them. But for those of us who may never have that, the practice is what is going to change your life. So it's very important to practice.
yeah, small little steps. And then when you look back, you're like, when I started this new habit, this new practice, suddenly my life went up there. In the beginning, it might not seem like that.
Yes.
I'm at that point where I'm like, does anything move from whatever I'm doing? I feel like nothing is moving, but the universe is giving back to you who you are. So if you change yourself in the spiritual world, you say frequency or vibration. But for me, it makes a lot of sense because when you feel really happy, I feel like this vibration in my heart and my chest. So it makes sense to call it vibration. And if you're really depressed, it feels like everything is moving very slow. So that's also like a vibration. I just saw yesterday or 2 days ago, universe, the law of attraction only works the way if you change yourself, if you raise your vibration, if you become a better person, better things will come to you. But this also needs patience. So
Yeah.
the longer you are there, and practice, yeah, patience and practice. So be patient with practice and don't expect radical changes very fast. It happens for a few people. We hear about those. Like Eckhart Tolle was talking about one day, but he was 28 and since 6 years old, he was depressed, manic depressed. He wants to take his life. So imagine 22 years of doing something and eventually it just changed him. And I also had an interview I uploaded last weekend. And he said it was 18 months of meditation before some
Yeah.
practice.
Yes. That's
You never know,
yeah.
right?
That's right.
Be 3 months. Practice.
Yeah.
Super. Where can people reach out to you if they want to?
Yeah. If they would like to reach out to me, I'm most active on Instagram in terms of social media. My handle is at Dr. So Dr. Poorna Menon, which is my full name. So Dr. Poornamenon. And if they DM me there, I pick up all my DMs and I can reply to them.
That's the best way. You also have a webpage, right? So people can read more about you.
Yeah, I have my practitioner's profile through the clinic that I work for, which has more info on all of the modalities I do and my specializations. And I can share that link with you so you can link it to the podcast.
I'll see. I have a lot of ideas of putting a lot of videos here in this YouTube video for the ones which watch the YouTube
Yeah.
and in the show notes, all the different links. That's going to be very interesting. So thank you so much for your time so far and you dear listeners for staying with us if you managed to listen that long. And see you again. And please reach out to either of us if you have any questions, if you want to go deeper in some topics we didn't touch up on. I'm open for all these. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Thank you, Oliver. Take good care. Wishing you the healthiest and best life ahead.